So I'm very delighted to see you, Simon.
Thank you.
Phillips. Welcome in Jazz Meeting. And the first question is always, who is Simon without the drums?
Without a drum kit? I do have another job. That is a recording engineer and producer. So when I'm not playing drums, actually usually what I'm doing is making records.
Yes.
So I've been doing that for not as long as playing drums, but almost as long.
Okay.
Over 30 years. So.
And when did you find your passion? When was that very moment that you said to yourself, this is what I want, this is my instrument?
Oh, when I was 3.5 years old.
Yes?
Yeah.
You realized at that
Absolutely,
moment?
yeah.
Oh, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So
No, there was
happy
no-
are you that you are, at that age you knew what your mission was?
Well, at that age, you don't know that you have to grow up and get a job.
Yes.
You have no concept of that. Yeah. But all I knew was from that moment on, which was when my father was rehearsing his band in our house, in our home.
Yeah.
He got a new drummer that very first rehearsal. His name was Dave Rogers. I'll never forget him. And that was the first time I saw a drum kit being played from behind.
Yeah.
Because when I walked into the room, the band was facing kind of that way and the drummer was here facing away. So I could see the hi-hat, could see the bass drum pedal and his snare drum and everything. From that moment, that was it.
Yeah. Wow. And your musical adventure, for example, Jesus Christ Superstar, how was that experience at that age?
Well, it was a fantastic experience. What happened was, by the time I was 12 years old, I joined my dad's band, which was a Dixieland dance band. I was on tour with them for 4 years, and then he passed away very suddenly, which meant the band kind of fell into my hands. But at that age, I was 16 years old, the last thing I wanted to play was Dixieland dance music. I wanted to play rock and roll, you know. But in addition to that, he was a clarinet player, and he was he had a very distinct style and tone. His sound was different to anybody else in England at that time. It was more akin to Artie Shaw.
Okay.
That type of tone, not Benny Goodman, because Benny Goodman's sound was very woody and quite classical actually. But Artie was a much kind of a fatter sound, and that's what my dad kind of had. It would have just been totally wrong with another clarinet player. It would have been so wrong. I couldn't have stood it. Even though I wasn't mad about playing that music anymore, I did know the music very well, and I knew what the kind of sound should be. So I decided to disband the band and basically put myself out of work as well. One of the piano players that played in my dad's band had taken the keyboard spot, one of the keyboard spots. There were two players in Jesus Christ Superstar, and they had to find a new drummer because the one that was there was leaving, and he recommended me to the conductor, and
a great opportunity.
Yeah, they gave me an audition.
Yeah.
And my mum, I wasn't allowed to. I wasn't old enough to drive.
Yeah.
I could, but wasn't legally allowed, you know. But I had a car, because I had to buy a car to take my drum kit around.
Yeah.
And I would always bring people up, adults up, and say, "Can you drive me today? Can you do this gig?" You know, give them a few quid. And I went and did the audition. And then I heard later that afternoon that I had got the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in the Jesus Christ Superstar, and being a part of it must be...
At that age?
Yes.
Yeah. It was amazing. I mean, it was probably the leading theatre production at the time in London. It was 1973.
Yeah.
Cambridge Circus, Palace Theatre, one of the larger theatres there. I mean, it was an amazing experience. First of all, learning the charts, then learning how to play up on stage, looking at a conductor, which I'd never done before, because you don't, in a jazz band, you don't get conducted, you know. So that was interesting. But then, because we were on stage, a lot of the cast would get in between the conductor and where the band's set up. So then you have to quickly move to the left, and in the wings was a television monitor, and there was a camera on the conductor, black and white, of course. And then you had to look at the TV monitor. And then when you think everybody was out the way, then you have to go back to the conductor, because it's just nicer to look at the real thing, you know. So that takes a little bit of learning, choreography as to where the actors are going to be, the singers and the actors, you know. But the great thing about that show was I got a lot of exposure, both to people that would come in the audience who were in the business and the rest of the cast. And I would, you know, within a few weeks, people were coming up to me and said, "Hey, I'm doing a demo. Would you come and play on it?" Yeah. Which studio? You know, so that's how I started my studio career.
Yeah. So you are very grateful that it started at Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, I'm grateful for everything. Actually, I'm grateful to that guy, and his name is Dave Cullen, and he came to my shows in Ronnie Scott's last week.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm still in contact with him after all those years. It's lovely. It really is great. Yeah.
Wonderful. Your musical adventure, it started very early. So you became a member of Toto, but also the Who. There was another music style. So what did you learn, and what kind of experience did you have?
Well, the Who was a couple of years before Toto.
Yeah.
And I played with the Who. I didn't become a band member, because that was already that was Pete and Roger and John. They were the only band members after Keith had passed away. But I'd done a few records with Pete Townsend, and when it was time for the Who to reform to do their 25th anniversary tour in the States, Pete asked me if I would do it, and I said, yeah, I think that would be fantastic. So I mean, an amazing tour, an amazing experience, and first time playing consistent large venues, football stadiums, every night. Certainly a minimum of 50,000 people, going up to 90,000 people every night. Crazy. Doesn't even happen these days now. I mean, unless you're maybe Beyonce or Justin Timberlake or something, but none of the rock bands do that. Even the Who don't play that big now. You know, they're lucky if they play 15,000. Too old.
Do you know why?
Too old, and their audience is too old.
And the music, and the music is also changing. And the music is also changing. Do you think?
Yeah, the tastes. Actually, not. I mean, yes, music is changing, but what's really changing is the whole concept of popular music and how to listen to it, and how people buy it, and how they go to see it. It's totally changing and has changed. I don't call the music business anymore. No. I call it the entertainment business. Because that's what it is. Because it does not include the recording business. The recording business is gone, pretty much. Certainly the way that I knew it. And the sale of an album, even making an album, is almost not important anymore. No. It's just it's kind of a historic way of making and selling music. I still believe in it, because I don't know anything else. I love making a record. I love the craft that it needs, the package and everything. I love that, and I still make records. But in the big picture, I mean, instead of selling, 200,000 or 300,000, we're selling, 20,000.
That's a pity.
It's crazy.
Yes. The highlights. Can you name some highlights from that musical adventure? Or a lot?
For me, pretty much every musical adventure is a highlight.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been. I've always looked at it like that. But I think some of the things that I could really pinpoint would be just the highlights of playing with different musicians. Obviously playing with Jeff Beck back in 78, 79, 80, 81 and 86 was wonderful. Mm-hmm. That was always a great kind of partnership. Stanley Clarke. Playing with Gil Evans and his big band in 83 at Montreux. Fantastic. Playing with Art Blakey and Billy Cobham at Montreux was, baptism by fire, but it was great. Finally getting to play even just a little bit with John McLaughlin in Mumbai at one of Zakir Hussein's memorial concerts for his dad. But those are things I can maybe pinpoint, and I'm sure there's a lot more I'm forgetting about. But there's been a lot. There's really been a lot, and my whole tenure with Toto, 21 years of being a band member, which is a different thing to just being a side. I ended up co-producing and engineering the music. So we made 2 records in my studio, 2 of my studios. So that was obviously many highlights during that term. We saw the music business change from the year I joined, and at the end of '92 up until the last show I played was in 2013, and we saw the whole business change. We kind of had to adjust the way we did business over those 21 years.
So we have you talked about the highlights, the fortune moments. What do you think about the new generation, for those new musicians and drummers? What kind of future do they have?
Well, funnily enough, it's in the rock and roll business and the pop business. It doesn't look too exciting to me. A lot of shows now, big shows, are all automated. They're all run with Pro Tools or Logic. Or with a MIDI click or something. It's very robotic. It's very it's very undynamic and continuous and doesn't really change. So that doesn't really interest me a lot. However, all the young jazz musicians coming up and all the young jazz artists is phenomenal, and there's so many. And going out and playing with Hiromi. I've actually gone into a different area of the entertainment business, and I've actually met and heard and got to listen to a lot of young and upcoming players, and they're amazing. We're really producing some really great young jazz musicians. So I find is really exciting. We would do a jazz festival, and I might on the bill might be Brad Meldau and Mark Juliana. And that was the first time I saw Mark. I'd heard of him. I saw him playing. I was going, "Wow, this guy's great!" And there's loads of players. Eric Harland, Greg Hutchinson, Julian Brown is playing with Thundercat now, and also some of the young, not just drummers, but musicians. Hadrian Farrow, bass player. Dennis Ham, who plays on my record.
Yes.
Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And there's loads. There's loads. Gerald Clayton. There's some amazing upright bass players. So I think actually the jazz world is looking very exciting and very bright.
And when did jazz come into your adventure?
Well, I started off in jazz.
You started with Dixie.
I started with Dixieland.
Dixie.
So to me, to play a straight ahead jazz rhythm was the first thing I learned how to play.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, because they don't know the history, and a lot of musicians, especially in America, they don't know that part, or they didn't know that part of me. They thought I came from a rock and roll grounding.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not at all. I came from the jazz grounding. Just like all the other drummers that were older than me, but I kind of almost say my own era because of the ages of the musicians I was working with at the time. So people like John Heisman, Ian Pace, Cozy Powell, John Bonham. I mean, all those players, basically we were all Dixieland drummers. That's the funny thing. We all started there. And then kind of broke out of that. So, and a lot of those players, and Ginger Baker, I mean, I know they're much older than me, but, well, Ginger is, they can all play a good shuffle. Because they went from Dixieland into blues. Charlie Watts, they know how to play a shuffle. And the problem is a lot of rock drummers, they never learn how to play a real shuffle. And you can tell a mile off. So it's a different. So for me, even though I went away from the jazz thing and I vowed when I was very young, I said I'm never going to play jazz again. I was 18 years old.
But it's wonderful what I heard from you from the jazz.
I kind of went back into it, and what I needed was I needed a way to get back into it that was a little bit more rock and roll in attitude, and that the key was Tony Williams. Because Tony, he wanted to be a rock and roll drummer. He loved rock and roll, and he loved playing. He always played loud. Talked to Ron Carter about it. Tony was always a loud player, even playing jazz, but still very sensitive and beautiful. He kind of, him and Billy Cobham and Lenny White both kind of got me back on course into the jazz, playing straight ahead, playing bebop, and then I got back into listening to Elvin and Art Blakey and Ed Thigpen and Roy Haynes, and now I've kind of really gone full circle, and it's great. I love it.
I love it too. So my next question: what means success to you? Because when you are younger, maybe the meaning of success is different than it now is. So I'm very curious about that.
Well, two parts to that. Success as a musician is obviously at some point, especially if you spend a lot of time struggling financially, getting work. When you have a hit and when things go well and you make some money, that's a wonderful thing for a musician to achieve. But of course, as we all know, it never lasts. And that's usually the big mistake we all make, funnily enough. I made it too, Once you get into that bracket, you kind of think that's going to keep on going. Then suddenly you realize one day the royalty check is much less, but the tax bill is much higher. And then basically you're like, oh dear, bye-bye Porsche and whatever, I mean, we all go through it. I'm sure we've all been through it. Personal things that happen in your life as well, So I don't really measure success as from a material point of view, because at a certain age that's important. But then for me, a real success is playing the music you want to play and being lucky to be able to go on the road and perform it like I am with Protocol, which is just fantastic, and people will come and see you, and hopefully make a reasonable living, but success is to be learning, always learning, always being in a learning position. So every time you get on stage, it's a learning experience, no matter how much experience you have or how many years you've had playing. I always say to people, the more you play, the longer you play, the more consistent you should get, and usually are. And the more consistent that the level is pretty high that you're playing. There are less bad nights. You will always have bad nights. Everybody will always go, shit, I even just down to, what did I do? I made a mistake last night in Zodomir. I don't think anybody noticed it, but I did. And the rest of the band did. I went, actually I made 2 last night, which were interesting. After 25 shows without doing any mistakes really like that, suddenly now they're happening. That's why we were rehearsing those bits. And I couldn't even remember how we started the tour off with this one particular song. I was like, really? But I always say to people, when you go on stage and you have a great show and you think it sounded great and all that, it's great for the ego, but you learn absolutely nothing. When you go out there and it's a rough show and you keep going, what is going on? What am I having to do to make this work? Why doesn't? That's when you start learning. And so I always try to tell people that it's when it's tough, it's a learning experience. But I also say you should never get pissed off or angry when people make mistakes or you make a mistake. I know a lot of musicians who do. The audience can see it. I laugh most of the time. I'm going, that was really stupid what you just did. But the other thing is, you cannot linger on it, because then you're going to fall at the next fence. And it's actually something I learned by doing a little bit of motor racing. That is something that's really, really important. If you're in a race and you've got people around you and you lock up your brakes, so you lift off, so your braking's all messed up, you select a wrong gear, turn in, and everybody's going by you, right? So you eventually get it together and you're cursing all the way down the straight. You're not concentrating on the next corner and you'll mess up the next one. You'll never get it back. It's history.
It's history.
It's history, so move on. Go to the next one. Get yourself together and next section, And I try to, and I do, I bring that into music very much. I try not to think about it, ponder on it. If you're a experienced musician, you should be able to play around most mistakes. That's the thing. And sometimes mistakes are really cool.
Simon Phillips, I want to thank you for being you and for sharing.
Thank you.
I wish you love, luck, happiness and good health. And
Thank
a
you.
Wonderful show here at Metropole in Hengelo.
Lovely.
Thank you very much. It was, it's really enriched me too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Precious moments.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Lovely.